Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode 116 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Kelly Cardenas. Kelly is a stylist to the stars, an author, podcast host, all-around incredible individual, dad, husband. Great conversation, everyone. Sit back and enjoy. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host. Look at the smile across the stage. Anybody that's watching the video on YouTube or sees our clips, awesome individual. I'm so excited to have you on, Kelly. Kelly Cardenas, how are you, brother?
I'm doing amazing, man.
I'm a stylist to the stars, author, podcast host, all-around incredible individual. We just connected not too long ago, but a month ago. But God, I feel like I've known Kelly my whole life now, and it's just I'm excited about this conversation today. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to go in as many directions as we possibly can and just give as much value to the audience as possible. I always start off by starting on what you're currently up to. We're going to change it around today. We're going to actually start with Kelly as a little kid. Where'd you grow up? How many siblings? What'd you do? Let's start with that area. Where'd you grow up, Kelly?
Okay. I could do it in one breath. You want to see it? I got to take a deep breath to be able to do it.
Look up.
Okay. I was born in England, moved to Taiwan, Idaho, Utah, Florida, California, Memphis, California, Las Vegas, back to California.
All within what age?
Well, to now. Now I live in California, but I was born in England, didn't get the accent. We moved to Taiwan.
How old are you when you moved to Taiwan?
Let's see. I was 2.5, and so I went from 2.5 to just about 5 there. So I have a few memories there. Kwati and How Bao, and learning a little bit of Mandarin. Kwati was faster. Shei Ni. Things like that. Like I don't know a lot of it, but I remember those times. And then Idaho came, and then we moved to Florida. My dad was in this shuttle program for a bit, and we moved to Florida, which was awesome. Moved to California when I was in 4th grade, and then I went from 4th grade to hair school, all the way through hair school in California, Lompoc, represent, whoop whoop, and then Memphis, Tennessee, for about 3.5, 4 years, San Diego, and then Las Vegas. Before it was the cool Las Vegas, it was still puffy paint and hip packs, and then we took that into. I was there for about 14 years, and then I moved to what I call heaven, which is Carlsbad, where I live now.
You have a lot. You've burnt a lot of the rubber on those tires. There's a lot of moving around, brother. A lot of moving. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have 2 older brothers, Rob, who's the lawyer, and Guy, who is the doctor.
What Bon Jovi song is that? That's a Bon Jovi song.
I don't know which one that is, man.
Oh God, I'm gonna send you the clip. What Bon Jovi song is that? He's talking about. There's a line in it when he goes. It was. And he's saying, I think he's Johnny's Uptown Lawyer, and something's a medicine man. I'm just a rocker from a long hair rock and roll band. That was actually his line in one of his songs. I was like, you can't make that up anymore. That was awesome. I'm gonna send you the clip of that. I used to be a huge Bon Jovi fan when I was a little kid, man. I don't know why, but interesting. Okay, very, very cool.
I got to make him cry. I got to make Bon Jovi cry.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay, so I got the chance to go to his it's his, I think, Sacred Hearts tour, which is all his it's a fan club, and you pay this obscene amount of money to be in his fan club, and then you could go to acoustic sets where there's only 250 people that get to go. He plays a couple of songs, and then he asks a question. Well, one of my friends produces it. So he asked me to come, and they generally vet all the questions, but because I'm his friend, he didn't vet the question from me. So he brought me the microphone because you get to ask him questions in between time. But again, they always prompt these things and make sure that they're not going to ask some crazy question. And he hands me the mic and I said, we can assume that Little John didn't know that you were going to get to the levels you got to Hard Rock or Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all these things. We could assume that. And he said, yes. And I said, so what would you tell 7-year-old John right now? And he lost it. And
seriously.
Yeah. And then I got him to say my wife's name. I was like, can you say my wife's name? She doesn't sing well at all, and she wants to do a duet with you, and I wouldn't suggest it. And he's like, oh, man, you're going to be at the doghouse. I was like, no, because John Bon Jovi just said her name, so I'm good. So that was my John Bon Jovi story.
Oh, that's an awesome story. So how and what drove you into the world of hair styling?
Oh, man. I mean, it wasn't inspiration. It was desperation, right? My dad bought dog clippers to shave the dog because he thought he was going to save money. Shout out to every person out there with a dad that when you tell him you want a Big Mac, he's like, I could cook that at home for less. And he'll take you home and barbecue some nasty ass hamburger. And it doesn't taste anything like a Big Mac. And my dad thought he would save money by shaving the dog ourselves, bought dog clippers. We tried it once. The dog ran away. My brother, I needed a haircut, and it was either get a haircut by my mom and I look like not that great, or take it from my brother. So my brother starts cutting my hair in the bathroom. He's laughing, but he's bigger than me. So it's either take a butt kick in or take the haircut. So he's cutting my hair. My other brother is laughing in the background. The one laughing in the background becomes the doctor. The one cutting my hair becomes the lawyer. And the kid who takes the jacked up haircut becomes the hairdresser.
So what age did you start your education in the styling world? You went to school, obviously. When did you start that? I
call my formal education that was in a double wide trailer with my friend Will. Shout out to him, because once I got that jacked up haircut, we put the clippers away for a while. They broke, and shout out to every single person that didn't have enough money to be able to get new guards on your clippers. So what do? You put duct tape on them, and we put duct tape on the clippers, and we went to cut Will's hair, and my brother cut one side and he put it around his back because it was a small bathroom. And as he handed me the clippers, I didn't realize that the duct tape had malfunctioned, fell off, and the no guard. And I ran up the side of his head with no guard, and a bald fade wasn't cool at the time. And he's half black. And I didn't know how to work with his hair. So we literally, Jeff, cut it from the bottom, and it was bald all the way up to here. And then it came out like 3 inches and then up about 5 inches and over. So it looked like a big brick of cheese. That was my first educational experience in the professional beauty industry. But I was raised from a standpoint. My dad always told me, no matter what, with my mom and dad, they would always support me in anything that I did, as long as I did it to the best of my ability. So when I started doing hair, I started looking at every person, like, how can I give the coolest fade? And Color Me Bad was big at that time. And so I wanted to give the cleanest fade, because that meant that you were the coolest guy.
That is awesome. So how did that work into when did you open your first salon?
Oh man, I only opened my first salon because I got fired from my job on my day off, like Craig from Friday.
How old are you? How old were you when that happened?
I was, 2006, it's April 2nd, 2006. I'm watching the NCAA championship with my now wife. She was a friend of mine at the time. We weren't dating. No one believes that, but we were watching the game, and I got a call, and it literally was my day off. It's a Monday. Mm-hmm. I get the call, and they say, we've got to part ways. And that would started my journey on, which was the dumbest idea in the world. Like, to start my own company, and no one in my company or no one in my family had ever done it. I didn't have any background. I didn't have any business background, anything like that. But I knew that I wanted to honor the education that I had got from my mentors. And I wanted to cut away the fat of the things that I had learned and create a hybrid type of situation and I wanted to really change the way that people looked at hairdressers by the way that hairdressers acted. Because when I got into the industry early on in 1993, people would say, like, when I said I was going to be a hairdresser, people would be like, oh man, it's because you couldn't do anything else. And when I got in the business, I questioned this at first. I was like, man, that's kind of jacked up. But then I started to see the way that the people acted, and I could understand why. I could understand why people thought that. And I wanted to change the way that people looked at it. I wanted hairdressers to be a part of their community. I wanted them to be great dads, great mothers, be a part, like, you know, to be financially successful. As materialistic as that sounded, I wanted them to be that, because a lot of times that gets you in the door. It doesn't keep you at the party, but it definitely gets you in the door. So
yeah, 100%. So when was the actual, it was the first one was a brick and mortar you opened?
Brick and mortar, but I did it in the worst way possible, Jeff. Like my life is a testament to what not to do in business. I opened my first salon in a city where I didn't live. And so
do you realize how I've been laughing this whole time? I'm enjoying this more than anything, because you have this storytelling ability for every question I have, which I appreciate, because it's just, I'm holding myself from laughing, because every time you're about to tell the story, I just want to break out in laughter, because it's like, okay, here comes another epic story. Okay, sorry, continue. I had to throw that in there.
Dude, this one's a Taco Bell story, man. So I lost my job, but I had got hired to speak to this school before I got fired. So this woman thought I had a really good job, right? Because I worked for the best person in the whole professional beauty industry, like the top, like the Michael Jordan in the hair industry. And I was the director of his salons. And I get fired. Well, she doesn't know she's hired me. So she brings me in to Port Huron, and I speak to her students. And when I speak to them, you know, they're excited, all these things. It's so great. Well, I have t-shirts that I'm selling that says Kelly Cardenas Salon, but I don't even own a salon. It's just an idea. And I have these t-shirts and I'm selling them, and people are like, yes, I want to work with you. And I'm thinking, I hope not, because I don't even have a salon. I just have a shirt. And we go through the Taco Bell parking lot, and she's like, so, how could you help my salon? And I was like, and so literally I made it up at that instant, because there was one thing that I had already doing, which was coming in and consulting, and they would pay my fee and I'd consult with the salon. Yeah. Number two was something I had heard of someone else do that I thought was really cool. Shout out to Floyd Kenyatta. He brokered a deal for salons, and then he would take a percentage of their increase. And I was like, so I told her that scenario. I'd never done it, but I'd heard of someone do it. And number three, it was something that I thought would be really, really cool, Jeff, but I had never heard of anyone do it. And I hadn't done it. And I was hoping she didn't choose number three. And that was that you could take my name, we'll partner together. And I'll bring the concepts and philosophies, of which I didn't have, and we'll be in a larger partnership. And she instantly said, I'll take number three. And I about pooped my pants. And she's like, well, what does number three look like? And I said, well, and I made this up, and I said, generally, which means in Latin, I'm making it up as I'm saying it right now. So I said, generally, I come in for 18 days. I just made this up. 18 days for training. And then I come 3 or 4 times a year for 4 days. And she's like, I'll take it. And I was like, I don't have anything. So I called my brother, who's the lawyer, and I told him this scenario. And he's like, well, what was the negotiation? How much do you get? And I was like, I don't know. That's your job. You're my attorney. And he said, start off with 50%. And so I went back to her and I said, okay, generally in these deals, we do 50%. And she's like, all right, I'll take it. And I called my brother back and I was like, she took it. And he's like, what'd she take? And I said, she said 50%. And he said, dude, that was our starting point. We were going down from there. And I was like, well, she took it, so let's go. And he said, well, how's it structured? I said, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. You do it. And then everything went from there.
That is incredible. And she had only one salon at that time?
She had one salon. Yeah.
Now, when you continued on to your other salons, she was always your partner all the way through?
Do you want to hear an even cooler story 15 minutes after I signed this paper?
Oh, Jeff, man. This podcast is going to cost me a lot of money because I'm going to have to make so many different clips for it.
Jeff, check this out. 15 minutes, I swear, on my life. This is Port Huron, Michigan. Shout out to Port Huron, Michigan. No one knows where that's at. We were across the street from the Denny's. I signed. 15 minutes later, I get a phone call. They said, because I signed and it became Kelly Cardenas Salon as opposed to, Elite Expressions. They said, Kelly, John Paul is on the phone. And I was like, dude, John Paul ain't calling Port Huron. And I was like, somebody's crank calling me. And my brother would do this because I would call his law office when he first got his first job. And I would tell the secretary I was some whatever. And I was like, somebody's punking me. I was like, I ain't coming to the phone. They're like, no, Kelly, it's John Paul. And I was like, whatever. And then they come back and they're like, Kelly, it's really John Paul. Will you get on the phone? And I get on the phone and he's like, hello, Kelly, this is John Paul DeJoria. And I said, well, it's great to talk to you, John Paul. And he said, you just won the color bar contest for Paul Mitchell. And we wanted to tell you it's a national contest. And I was like, yes, because I had just changed the name, signed it. So it's mine now. So then a national award, bang, like that, 15 minutes later happens. I honestly did nothing. I have done nothing in my career that's any good. I have had great friends and things continue to happen.
That's okay. I don't even know where to go. There's so many areas to go with that. So how did that start? Okay. At your peak, how many salons did you have?
We had 5.
Now, how many do you have currently right now?
We have 3 right now.
Did were they affected in the last 2 of them were affected in the last 12 months, or this is something you guys decided prior to close?
We decided prior to close. One of them was a management company. We were the first people to do it in the professional beauty industry. So not many people know this, but the Four Seasons doesn't own any hotels. They're a management company. And we were at the Four Seasons for my brother's 40th birthday. I read the book and I was like, Rob, I got it. And he's like, what do you got? And I said, this is the future of the professional beauty industry. What if a person who owned a salon didn't want to build a brand, didn't want to have to build a business simultaneously, and they just hire us in as the management company, and we bring the brand, we bring the operations, and we're just a fixed cost for them, like the Four Seasons. And he was like, I'll write the contract. And then we sold the first one.
So it's almost like a franchise in a way.
Well, we stayed away from that word. But
it's very similar.
Yeah. But, it worked out. And so we were the first people to do it. But this is the lesson. Don't be the first one to the party, because the first one to the party doesn't always get the spoils. It's the second or third one that watches the bonehead like me make all the mistakes, and then they fix them. That one we had for 5 years. It went really well, had a great relationship with the people. They decided to go on their own. So that one went. The Hard Rock changed into the Virgin Hotel in Las Vegas. And that's the reason why that one closed. So that left us with 3.
Okay. Very, very, very cool. Is there thoughts of it continue that expansion or no?
I like them. I mean, I think they're great. I love helping people to build their own brands though. I think that's the biggest part of it is, to unlock and help people to develop their systems and realize that, when they develop their systems, don't fall in love with the system, love the people, manage the system. But most people get it backwards. They love the system and they manage the people.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that understanding too. I'm very aligned with that. I like that how you worded that. With your business now, I mean, what other layers, and just for the audience to know, and we're going to get into a lot of things about family and other stuff, but what other layers have come to that extension? Because now you've taken yourself as a brand. When did that mindset, and that's something I'm going through right now as well, when did that mindset kick in that I was going to turn Kelly into an actual brand? And you started with the book, and you started with other aspects of it, the podcast and all these other different layers, right? When did that all come together, like in your head?
I think it's still coming together right now, and
it's always going to change. I mean, let's be realistic. But when did you say, you know what, I have a brand here. Let me really take it to another level?
I think it was when there was a guy named Sean Chido who asked me about branding, and I had never thought about branding. I had just thought that I didn't have enough money to be able to hire a marketing firm, so I would wear my own shirt. And I believe so it really started at IBS New York, and this was in May of 2006. And I had been fired from my job. I had no income. I had no nothing, but I had a lot of stuff that I had to pay for. And so I made 3 shirts. I got invited by the boss who I used to work with to New York to do a show, and he's the most famous hairdresser in the world. So what I did is I made 3 shirts because it was all I could afford. I wore the shirts every day, and whenever I was around him, I knew people would take pictures of him. So I would turn my chest every time in a picture, and it said Kelly Cardenas Salon, and people would take that picture. And I knew if I could get it in front of enough people, then they would think it was something. And it ended up in one of the largest publications in the professional beauty industry, which is American Salon. It's like the Sports Illustrated of hairdressing. And 4 pages was me. But it wasn't taking pictures of me. They were taking pictures of him.
Of
but
course, yeah.
in every one, I was showing the brand. And then people started calling and applying for a job at that time. And so but that's when it really started, but I never realized it till Sean Chido asked me. He said, what about this branding thing? And I honest to God, Jeff, I had never thought about branding. I had just thought about like, I just want people to know. And I couldn't afford a billboard, and I was the billboard.
No, I mean, I mean, some of the greatest ideas come through need, right? And obviously that was a need, and you continued that process. But when did you take pen to paper and start putting the idea of putting a book together?
When my wife told me to shut up about wanting to write a book and go do it, if I was, like either shut up about it or go do it. And so I literally took an iMac, because I didn't have a laptop at the time. And I took every person listening has a orange extension cord from their garage. And I wanted to type in my side yard, but I couldn't do it because I just had an iMac. So I took the orange extension cord and I ran it out to the side yard. And I don't type well. I type with two fingers, but I put my hands where I go. This is what my dad taught me. Put your hands where they go on the keyboard and then go like this really fast, and people will never know. And so I did that. I sat in the side yard, and I swear on my life, Jeff, I sat in the side yard for 6 days, for as long as I possibly could. And I wrote the book in 6 days. And during it though, I was thinking about the story, because I knew at some point, whether I was on Jeff's podcast or on Oprah or on, I was about to say Ellen, but that wouldn't be a good show right now. That when they asked me, how'd you write the book? I would say I wrote it in 6 days.
Yeah, I love that. So what is your book about? Give the audience understanding if they want to pick up your book. What's it about?
So, I mean, elevator part, you wouldn't drive your car if it didn't have a speedometer, if the speedometer broke, not because the car won't drive, but because you wouldn't know how fast or slow you're going, because it would interrupt your reaction time. And so the 6 indicators, like most of us run our businesses, our lives, and our relationship without indicators to tell us how fast or slow we're going. And it impairs our judgment and our reaction time. And we just never think about it. And so this was a way for us to be able to look at, and it wasn't the 6 secrets. It was 6 indicators, because there's no one I've ever known that scores 10 in all 6. And so if you score 10 in 4 of them, there's 2 of them that you need to work on. And then when you work on the 2, then you drop the 4, and you're constantly working and getting better, as opposed to, building your ego, saying I'm beating my chest because I'm the best.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. So when was the timeline from that in the podcast?
So the podcast happened. The first one was in 2017. I just wanted to try it. So I, like everything, I just go headlong into it. And I recorded an episode. It's the first episode. It's like the lost episode with a guy named Eli. And I did it on my phone. And then I just kind of put it away. For 3 years, it just sat. And I had released it, but it just sat. It was just one episode. And then we went to the 10X conference last year. It was right before the world shut down. And one of my buddies that was there, I met him and I was like, oh, I want to do a podcast. I want to continue on doing this. And he looked at me, he's like, why don't we do it right now? And so we went up in the room and put our iPhone up and we filmed it. And I still haven't released this episode, but I just sit down and I talk to the dude, and that really sparked it. And we went. And so, over the last, it's been just over a year, and literally, like, everyone told me like the way to start a podcast was this way and that way, and you had to pay this money and you had to do this. And honestly, like, I'm that dude that my dad would make the Big Mac in the backyard. So I was like,
yeah,
I'm going to release as many as I want. I'm going to release them at 2:00 in the morning. I'm going to release as many as I possibly can, as often as I can. And I want to only have people on who are phenomenal people who happen to do great things, not the other way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. How many episodes have you recorded already?
As far as recorded, probably 125, 130. We've released 114.
Yeah. So and you started roughly around March last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So roughly around the same time. So I started just around April. I think April 10th or 11th when we released our first, and we pre-recorded I think you're today, by the time this is released, will be around 118, 119.
You're gangster.
So it's time. It's time consuming. It's time consuming, but it's great conversations, right? And it's so incredible how you meet and how the podcast world, especially if you use it as a networking tool, makes the world so small. And you'll meet people you would never network or talk to. And those conversations could turn into lifetime friendships that you would never, ever realize from some other. We're in different borders and obviously we connected. So it's an incredible tool. Children. Let's talk about children. Let's talk about, you have one child or more than one? You have two. How old are they?
Two. 9 and 12.
9 and 12. What are their names?
Maddox and McKenna.
Maddox and McKenna. What does it mean for you to be a father?
It's like the greatest thing in the world. It's the hardest thing in the world. And it just means I get cold on my bull poop all the time.
Explain what that means.
I mean, my daughter doesn't care. Like, she doesn't care about any of this stuff. Like, I'm super excited about, like, you know, if I get to go and speak. You know, one time I came home, you know, speaking from. Actually, she was there in the audience. I got to speak to like 5,000 people, and that's a really cool thing, right? You know, you know, be able to do that. And at this particular time, it was 2,500, and I got off stage and. I mean, there's a line for probably 45 minutes of people taking pictures and all this stuff. And she rolls up, and at first she's happy. She's excited. She's taking pictures and stuff like that. And probably 15, 20 people in, she looks at me and she's like, "Daddy, you got 5 more. And then we're going to Disneyland." And I was like, "But baby, there's a line." And she said, "I don't care, Daddy. You got 5 more. And then we're done." And I was like, okay, you know, and she just keeps me in that spot. I remember asking her, we were playing Legos one time, and I said, "Baby, what does Daddy do?" Because I wanted to pound my chest and be like, "Yo, Daddy's an author. Daddy has, you know, companies. Daddy does this. He travels around the world. He does this, that, the other." And because I come from nothing.
Yeah.
And well, I come from a lot of love. When I say nothing, I come from a lot of love.
Yeah.
And we're playing Legos, and I asked my daughter, like, "What does Daddy do?" Because I wanted her to tell me, like, author, all this stuff. And she just looked at me while she's playing. She didn't even break playing Legos. She looked up at me playing Legos. She was like, "You make people happy, Daddy." And then she went back to playing. And I was like, that's it.
It's that unconditional love, but it's also that authenticity, especially as a child. There's no sugarcoating. There's no bullshit.
Absolutely.
They don't know how to sugarcoat something at that age, right? They tell it as it is. And I love what you're saying, because my daughter, she's 14, incredibly, I told you when I was on your podcast, like incredible young lady. And she is exactly like that. Like I'd be like, "Look, I just did this," or "I was just on this stage," right? And she's like, "Yeah." She goes, "That's good." She goes, "How was your day, Dad?" Like, it's like, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? You're my dad. Be a good dad and F everything else off. I don't care what you're building, because I'm going to live my own life. And it's so funny, because I'd be like, she'll call my bullshit out like nothing. And I appreciate that, right? I mean, that's pretty special, right? And especially as she's 14 and she's this little adult, and she has these conversations. Like, she's such a smart young lady, and she's very open. So we go for at least 2-3 times a week. We'll go just for a power walk, me and her, and we'll have this an open conversation. And it's like, sometimes I forget that I'm talking to my daughter, because she just has this maturity about her, and she's just talking about life, and she's always asking me like questions about just like from meditation to spirituality, just about life, or when you're at this age, Dad, did you do this or this? Did you go through? She's always trying to learn and educate herself. And I appreciate that, but it's like, sometimes I almost forget that she's my daughter with her conversation, which I think is so special. And as they get older, you're going to appreciate that. You're going to see that. It's just that it's almost like I have a relationship with my son. I'm like his teacher. I'm still guiding him and teaching him, and I'm trying to get him to a certain level. And then my daughter is almost like I become a friend with her now. It's like I'm almost not a dad half the time. I'm almost just her buddy. Just like, "Hey, Dad, let's go for a walk. Hey, Dad, let's go have a workout." And it's and everything. And your role changes so much as they get older. So you just have to keep adapting and appreciating the time you have with them, right? Because I think it's so special. How old? How long have you been married for, Kelly?
13 years this year.
So I'm going on to 18. Where did you meet your wife?
I
You
met
told
her.
me that.
I met her working. We worked together,
Yeah.
and it was cool because we got a chance to be able to see each other in the native environments, meaning that she was dating someone at the time. I was married at the time, and or got married through the time, through the time. And but we got to see each other who that person was when they weren't putting on the front of the first date or anything like that.
How long? I'm going to go there. Marriage, your first marriage. How long did that last?
That's why I feel that I have celebrity in my veins, because it lasted a year and 2 months, and only people in Hollywood are married for a year and 2 months. So that's my claim to fame.
Why don't you think that marriage worked?
Oh man, I think there was a lot of things. I joked and said that she didn't really like my family, she didn't like my friends, and then I was like, to come to think of it, she didn't like me either. No, I mean, she was a great woman. She's an amazing woman. But I think that, I got engaged after 6 weeks. I got married after 6 months. I mean, we went, whoo, and I mean, I think that those kind of things, with marriage, you got to take your time. I mean, kids are in such a rush, and I was in a rush, and I think that that's the reason why.
How old were you when you got married originally?
Let's see, 2004. So I was 29. I mean, and it comes to
so you weren't too young.
Yeah, but what my dad says all the time is that the thing that we work at the least and fail at the most in life and in business is communication. And
100%.
I didn't communicate well. You know what I mean? But I'm very, very glad that I didn't communicate, because my wife now, like, I was a bonehead in so many areas of my life. And, even though I was a bonehead, my brother chose my wife for me, and he chose the right one.
Explain that to me. What do you mean your brother chose your wife for you?
He called me one time. He's like, yo, your picker is broken. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, you keep picking the same exact woman with a different name and a different face. And he said, your picker's broken. I'm going to pick your next wife. He went to a concert, a Ziggy Marley concert. He came home and said, I found your wife. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, I found your wife. I said, who is it? He said, it's Brooklyn. I was like, I work with Brooklyn. That's my friend. He said, that's your wife. And I was like, no way. And then she met all my friends, and all my friends were like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why aren't you with her? And I was like, she's my friend. We work together. And then, everyone else in my whole life knew it except me. And then my boneheaded butt, it took me 3.5 years of working with her before I actually, started pursuing. And the rest is history.
How long were you guys dating before you guys got married?
It was about 2.5 years. About 2.5.
You guys gave us some space there too, which is nice.
Yeah.
So when we first talked, I'm going to go somewhere else with this. We talked about the UFC and your brother and your involvement, and let's talk about that. When did you guys get involved, and how was your involvement and your brother's involvement? And it's something obviously you have a passion for, because I'm assuming you're still a fan.
Huge. I mean, I'm a huge fan, always been a fan, since UFC. Let's see. I believe it was UFC 1, because it was Ken Shamrock against Hoist Gracie. That might've been 2. But I believe it was 1. So we were watching it since then. We were huge fans. Then we moved to Las Vegas, and, but it wasn't big at that point. I used to give my brother a hard time because he's an attorney, and I used to call his office all the time and say that I was like the general manager of a football team, and his secretary would be like, yo, Jeff Fisher from the Tennessee Titans is on the line. And he'd be like, yeah, whatever, it's my brother, get him on the phone. And he would always yell at me and be like, yo, dude, I've got a real job, but we come from a small town. We give each other a hard time. Yeah. He graduated magna cum laude from undergrad, and he graduated, like, he did really well in college, but we didn't come from much. So when he got a real job, I wanted to give him as much crap as possible. And I would do this all the time. And he calls me one day and he's like, hey man, you need to stop calling me and saying you're a different person.
You are in Vegas at this time?
Yeah. So I'm in Vegas, and I call my brother calls me, and he's like, hey dude. And he calls me a dick. He's like, hey Dick, you need to stop with this calling and saying you're somebody else. And I was like, and I laughed, and I was like, okay, cool, because I've done it a lot. And he's like, dude, today you crossed the line. I was like, what are you talking about? I crossed the line. He's like, dude, you called and told me that you were Vanderlei Silva. And I was like, no, I didn't. And he's like, dude, seriously, you're being a jerk stop doing this.
This meeting is being recorded.
Sorry, go.
There we go. Now it's being recorded.
But your side was still being recorded, 100%?
Yeah, 100%. I've got it.
Okay.
So he says to me, you got to stop calling, man. And I said, dude, I didn't call you. He's like, yeah, you did. You called me today and you said you were Vanderlei Silva. And I said, dude, I didn't call you. And he's like, wait, are you telling the truth? I said, yes. And come to find out that day, randomly, Vanderlei Silva needed some contract work done. He called my brother's law firm by himself, no agent, no nothing. He calls my brother and says, this is Vanderlei Silva. I need to talk to Rob Cardenas. And my brother does not take the call because he thinks it's me. And he ends up calling him back. They have a conversation. He helps him out with the contract and my brother becomes his agent. And it was so crazy because we had grown up loving this sport at the highest level, wanting to be at the shows in Vegas. You get to know a couple people. You're at the, you're sitting like for Quentin Rampage Jackson's first fight in the UFC against, it was Kevin Randleman. Or no, it wasn't Kevin Randleman. I can't remember who it was. It might've been, but we were front row, like not like almost front row. I'm talking like front row where he's getting the Vaseline on. I was able to slap his hand and say Memphis, so we went from this fan of watching pay-per-view in Memphis, Tennessee to being in the front row. And then my brother becomes the agent for one of the greatest fighters of all time. Man, yeah. I'm in.
Yeah. It was such a fun time of the sport. The sport has obviously evolved, but it's changed. There's events every week now. It's not the same as it was at one point. And when we started the company Kimura, it was January 2006. And I actually started really the company about 3-4 months before, but we did the first original launch. So it was right before the peak. And obviously the industry has evolved so much in 15 years, but I remember I was going to all the events and the exact same thing and because I would help a lot of the athletes get sponsorships and stuff like that because I was able to do that on my side. And a lot of the guys back then were making a lot of money. So they were making more money on sponsorships than they were off their contracts. So I was able to help them with their sponsorships and in turn, I would hang out with them. We became friends and speaking because I speak Portuguese, it kind of put a foot in the door for all the Brazilian fighters. So I had a roster of Brazilian athletes. I was sponsoring quite a bit of them at one point. We had Talos Leias, we had Verdums, we had Thiago Silvas, we had tons of them. Oh my God, it was so many of them at one point, but it was such a fun little venture because it was, like I said, it was just the sport was just evolving and it is such an impactful sport. And now you look at it, it's growing at such a rapid pace still. So, it was a very, very fun part. Did your brother still do that or no? Is he away from that now?
He doesn't. He did it as a pet project, but let's be serious though. For all you listening out there, Jeff was sitting in the seats because he was doing something good. I was sitting in the seats because I had some really cool friends. Like I wasn't rolling like Jeff. Jeff was hanging with the fighters, all that stuff. I had a couple of friends in Vegas. Vegas is all about knowing the doorman and the bartenders and everything like that. You could get wherever you want, but Jeff was rolling high. I was the dude sneaking in and ending up in the bathroom with George St. Pierre and being like, yo, brother, you need to take some of that money and buy a suit because your suit is too short. Like you were wearing a busted up, like high water suit. So no, but I love me some GSP, but like you were flying in that, you were making the fights happen. I was just hanging out. So
it's crazy is see some of these athletes and how, it's been only a few of them, but a few of them have really evolved into stars. Mm-hmm. And JSP, I think his acting career is just about to take off. Like he is really going to get out there. He was just on the Winter Soldier show. I don't know if you saw that on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah.
And he apparently just recorded another 2 or 3 films. Like he's really I think he's going to take off in the next while and start becoming a really mega star. And talking about spirits, I don't know if you heard of Conor McGregor just sold a portion of his company for $600 million. Is what's it called? Is it called
Proper 12?
Proper 12. Yeah, he just sold. I don't know if he sold the whole thing or a portion of it with his partners, and it was just announced the other day, $600 million. So it's crazy how a guy like Conor how he's he's become a megastar off that. And eventually I could see him getting to acting and other stuff. So it's nice to see how the sport has really, really evolved and changed over the last few years and getting into that. With yourself, where do you see yourself going business-wise over the next little while? Because obviously I see you're a type of person, you have a lot of it planned in your head, and I can see you have somewhat of a vision of where you want it to be. Where do you want it to go?
I think the biggest thing is serving people at the highest level, man. I mean, that's what it breaks down to. When people ask me, like on a plane, now, and not during COVID, obviously, but during when I would sit on a plane and they'd be like, yo, what do you do? I'm a servant, man. Like I want to serve companies. I want to serve people. And I just talked to a guy named Manny, a homie. I was telling you about him, but I mean, he washes people's feet, man. Like he has a servant, SamaritansFeet.com, and he provides shoes for people all over the world. And what he does is he washes their feet before he puts the shoes on. And really for me, I really truly want to serve at the highest level. And what I've been asking over and over again in the morning, I go and I do morning pages, which you know about. I go and do that and I write and I literally ask, like, God, what do you have for me today? How can I serve today? Who can I serve? And sometimes it's serving people by making their hair a little bit shorter. Sometimes, like this weekend, I'll be at a Native American casino speaking on leadership and on culture. And other days, I'm serving my son by being at his football game. But I want to be exactly where God would have me to be at the particular time and not be too big to do any of the things that he has me to do at that time.
I love that. I mean, that's me in a nutshell. Like, I mean, you never, ever put yourself in a situation you're too big for anything. I mean, that is when you stop losing authenticity and people start calling you your bullshit. I mean, you'd have to be, it doesn't matter the smallest person to the biggest person, you treat everybody equally. And even I'll be honest, even with my company like Camore, where, I mean, I remember, like, we deal with a lot of customers. I remember always even talking to them. Like, I've had customers been with us for 15 years and they might order $100 every 2 months and they're absolutely such a small account, but I treat them as good, if not better than I treat the bigger accounts. You treat everybody equally and that loyalty continues and grows. And that's how you grow as a person and as a brand. So I think I appreciate that so much. With yourself and in general, like, I always ask this question to everybody. If something were to happen to you today, in a few words, how would you want to be remembered or described by your loved ones?
It's a good question. I think the biggest thing would be I would want to be remembered for speaking life into people.
Give me more detail about that. What do you mean by that?
Well, my dad
I understand what you mean, just for the audience to understand.
Well, I mean, my dad does this. Like, Jeff, he can hang with you. He doesn't know about Camorraware. He doesn't know about your real estate ventures. He doesn't know about your podcast. But if you spent 5 minutes with my dad, you would be better at all of them. And I believe that my gift is to speak life into people, to help them to understand how amazing that they are and that they're perfectly, wonderfully made. And if we all realize that we were perfectly, wonderfully made in the image of God, anything contrary to that was a lie. And to walk in the truth every single day. If people knew that, some of the decisions that we make, whether it be financially or in relationships or things like that, we wouldn't make them because we would act according to the fact that we are perfectly, wonderfully made. And that's the life that I want to speak into every single individual that I come in contact with. And on my headstone, I would love it to say, he spoke life.
Your dad, what does your dad mean to you? And why I'm asking this is because you've now 4 times you've put him on this, which is he well deserves to be there, but you put him on this pedestal of just incredibleness and the way you describe him. And it's like, what does your dad mean to you? And I know you're going through a difficult situation and whatnot at this point, but we won't get into that. But what does your dad mean to you?
Well, let's get into that because when we did the podcast the last time, man, I was in tears at the end. The reason why is because I was going back and forth. I had got a call from my dad and he told me he didn't have much time left. And he said, and he was talking about days. And my dad means the world to me, man. I mean, he's not a perfect being, but he's an amazing guy. He's the wisest guy I've ever met. He always brings me back to center, and he's just an amazing rock and always has been for our family. He was held up by my mama. And, but that day, I told you that. And I went out and I was struggling back and forth, and I went out to Vegas and I saw him, and he literally, I was getting all his affairs in order. I got his bank accounts. I got everything to do. And he said, here's all my passwords. So when I pass, everything will be okay. I don't want to leave a burden on you. And then we were doing a deal in Park City, and he's like, son, I really wish I could have sold Park City. And he got to a point where he was saying, like, dude, in a couple of days, I'm going to pass. And I was like, man, my dad's only 68 years old. And I'm going through this stuff, and I'm like in business mode though. You know how it is, Jeff. Like, you got business mode. You know what I'm talking about. And I went into business mode, and I was like, okay, we got to get these fares in order, all this stuff. Well, it comes to find out, I read the medication bottle, and it said, take 3 times a day, once 3 times a day for severe pain. And then it said, if needed. He didn't read the if needed part. So he didn't have severe pain. And for 5.5 months, he had been taking medication that he shouldn't be taking, and it affected his brain. And it got him to a point where he was feeling that he was done. We took him off the medication, and Pops is back. Pops is back. That's
seriously.
Pops is back. Since I talked to you, Pops is back. Like, he's recovering. But this is the challenge, and this is the thing that I want to get out there, is what he was taking. He was taking oxycodone, and he was taking 30 milligrams of oxycodone every single day for 5.5 months. This is the most faithful guy in the entire world, but this got him to a point where he was ready to give up on life. I cannot imagine a young person that is taking that, where it would take their mind. And so for the families that are going through it with the maybe has a person who has an addiction, I want to tell you that there's hope. The person who's in the addiction, I want to tell you that you're perfectly, wonderfully made. There is nothing wrong with you, and everything's going to be okay. And for the person about to going through emotions and about to take that stuff, make sure that you understand and know what it'll do to a person, because it almost took my pop out. I had probably 2 days with my dad left if he didn't stop taking it, and now he's back.
Yeah, that's. I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, yeah, it's just. I mean, oxycodone. I mean, in the 90s, early 2000s. I mean, that was a very addictive drug. And now you talk about. We could even go back into the whole UFC day. Like, a lot of those original athletes were heavily on those, like WWE athletes and sport athletes. They were taking it for pain, and they would get addicted to it. And it was huge even in the bodybuilding world. I mean, that is a very addicting drug. So, man, I'm so happy. I mean, that was not what I was expecting. So, I mean, amazing. I'm so happy for you. So that's awesome. That is awesome.
But I want to tell you this, Jeff, it's a testament to your character, because you are a very busy guy. And when we got done with our podcast, you sat with me. And but you're going to try it. But that's what I'm saying. The realness of you, and the reason why you're successful in every single thing that you do, is because you sat with me, and then you followed up multiple times, texting me, asking me if I'm okay. It had nothing to do with business, had nothing to do with promotion, had nothing to do with marketing. It had all to do with the fact that your heart was in a place where you wanted to help. And I could tell you that's the reason why every single thing that you touch will be gold, is because you are who you say you are.
Yeah. See, that's me reacting to certain ways. I know it was my upbringing. It's just, you don't think of it as doing something good. It's just the way you have to do things. It's the way you treat people, right? I mean, you treat people the way you would want to be treated. And if everybody lived that mindset of that, put yourself in that. I was just talking to a gentleman this morning, and he does a lot of leadership programs for individuals. And when he talks to businesses, he actually said something to me, and he said to me, he goes, what I try to explain to these CEOs or these business owners, he goes, I want you to stop for a second. He doesn't even understand what NLP is, but he was using NLP. He goes, I want you to sit there, and I want you to take yourself out of that situation. And I want you to visualize yourself now in that situation working, and sit back and just watch what you do every day. And he goes, are you truly treating your employees? Are you truly treating yourself the way you want to be doing? Are you running the business the way you want to be doing? Are you happy in the business? Like, he asked all these questions, and it's all about asking the question. But he says sometimes people need to put themselves outside the look in, which a lot of people never allow themselves to do, to truly understand is, whoa, maybe I'm not doing things right, or maybe I'm not truly happy. So I think it's very important for people to understand that is putting yourself in a situation where you could ask yourself the right questions. And then once you ask yourself the right questions, being able to ask the other people the right questions. And that's the only way you truly get answers, right? And I think a lot of people are scared to ask themselves the question. And that's why they go through every single day of being this numb life, because they're scared of what change could happen if they ask themselves the right questions. And most of the time, those changes are for the benefit, but people are too scared to get in them. And that's why we could get in this. I mean, why are people in the same job so many years and they're miserable? Or why are people in a relationship for so many years and they're miserable? Because they're scared to ask themselves why they're in that relationship, or why they're in that job, or why they're doing that business, or why they're doing certain things. And the minute they could actually come out of that shell and ask themselves, why are they doing it? And they start giving themselves real answers, most likely they're going to find happiness, but there's that fear of finding that. So I think it's so powerful you said that. I mean, it's not being scared to treat people the way you want to be treated, and be able to actually see and visualize what is truly happening around you and be present all the time, right?
Absolutely.
I just went on a rampage there, so I apologize.
No, I love it, man. You're a gangster.
Motorcycles. You have I'll just obviously assume you have a motorcycle. Do you have more than one or just one?
Man, I'm the biggest poser in the world, dude. I don't even have a motorcycle. I
don't.
Hey, man, I rent them. Like all my cool is wrapped up in my wife. Everything that I have that's cool is a gift, right? People look at me and they're like, "Oh, wow, I like timepieces. I like your timepiece." I'm like, it was a gift from my wife. I didn't do anything. My chain, Travis Piper, shout out to him. I didn't do anything for this.
Okay, I was going to ask you, you know what? I've been waiting this whole conversation. I was going to ask you, do you have a jewelry line with your logo on it?
Dude, yes, we do.
Awesome.
Right? And so we do. But it doesn't happen because I'm cool. It happens because people give me gifts. I have really cool friends. And like you, I mean, you're cool. I hang out with you. People are like, wow, you must be cool. Dude, I put a clip up of you and people were like, oh, you're pulling out the big guns. And I was like, dude, no, seriously. I was like, I've been working at this. I've been doing this a lot. But then Jeff shows up and everyone's like, oh, damn, like you're really serious about this. So I honestly, I borrow credibility. I rent motorcycles when I go. I'd like to have one, but I've got a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we talked about it, and me and my wife, but she did ride on one this last weekend at the PLH. Shout out to Gary Spellman, and we rode on. She rode on someone else's motorcycle because I'm not comfortable enough to ride her on there. Yeah. And dude, she was like, "You need to get a motorcycle." She's like, "You look so good on a motorcycle." All this stuff, and I was like, "I will sit on a motorcycle every day if you look at me like that," because my wife is super hot, and like, you know what I'm saying, like. If she wants to kiss me all the time because I'm on a motorcycle, dude, I will just sit on a motorcycle.
Do you have any other hobbies or any other stuff do you have a passion for? Like, do you like old cars? Like, where's your passion with stuff? I
got old cars, definitely. I like bicycles. I got the Carlsbad Bentley.
I see your pictures. Yeah.
You got the Carlsbad Bentley. I do like cars. I've got a 63 Impala. I've had it sent. My dad bought it for me when I was in high school, second owner. I bowl. Dude, I am all about bowling. Never
in a million years. I thought that was a come out of you.
Hey, bowling is that next future. Like you talk about the UFC growing, bowling is going to be that next thing because bowling, think about it. You don't have to be fashionable. It's the last place that's not a fashion show. The fatter and older you get, the better you are. So America, understand that bowling is coming and I'm on the front end of this.
You're going to start your own bowling league?
I want my own bowling alley and I don't even want people to pay. I just want to have a bowling alley and I want to be able to walk down the lane because I remember that dude at the bowling alley, your ball gets stuck and then that dude walk out and you're like, damn, he's so cool. He could walk past the imaginary barrier. And I'm like, that would kick so much butt. Like I want to own a bowling alley because I think it would make it cool too.
So you're 69 Impala. You got it. Your dad got it for you. What age were you?
63. Get it straight. Get it right. Sorry, get it right. Get it tight, Jeff. I mean, you're good at this stuff, but you don't be saying 69. 63. So my dad got it for me, and when I was in senior, right before my senior year of high school. The people listening that are from my high school, you remember it. It was ugly as can be, but everyone thought that I had a grandma car because it wasn't cool at the time. But dude, I loved this car. And everyone had the lowered Hondas, the lowered mini trucks, and here I come with this big old boat. And nowadays they know what I'm talking about because 63s are cool. So.
I bought when I was 16 years old. I bought 2 cars in my 16th year.
What?
So, yeah, I worked from 14 and 15. I worked 2 summers at a daycare, saved enough money. I bought my first car I paid $2,200 for it. It was a 1986 IROC T-top white IROC Genomobile to the max. I drove that car for about 4 years, ended up giving it to my sister as a gift. My sister drove it for a couple of years, and my sister, I found out years later, she ended up selling it. I gave her to her as a gift. She ended up selling it, making money on it. And then the same time, I bought a 79 Camaro, and I was going to drag race. I was all about drag racing, and my mom's parents did everything I could. And then long story is I ended up moving on, getting girlfriends and and I never really fixed it, the drag race. So I fixed the engine was all done, but I never just left it. It sat in my parents' garage for years and years. I wanted to sell it because when I moved out, got married, and all these years later, and my mom refused to allow me to sell. She goes, it's sitting here, no one's bothering it, leave it. And 5 years ago, roughly about around 5 years ago, took it out of my parents' garage, did a full restoration, did most of my work myself, which I really enjoyed. I was the one summer I was learning how to do it all, did it all myself. And it's and then I just got it painted as flat black on black. And I totally fast and furiated it all, and it's all done up to the max. It's 4-speed Hurst shifter, and it pulls a little over 400 horsepower. And but the last year and a half, it's been sitting again in the garage. And it's funny because last night I actually talked to a mechanic, a buddy of mine, and what happens is because it was just a straight pipe, you would drive it for 10 minutes. You get out of the car, you smell like gasoline. I'm like, I can't be doing this every day. One, I'm going to get cancer. Second, I stink all the time. So we're actually going to take it out. I never thought I was going to do that, but I'm going to put my catalytic converters. I'm going to put on some mufflers, clean it up. And we're actually going to, I know for hardcore guys, this is a no-no, but we're going to put a fuel injector system in it to get it a nice, easy start. So it's going to be able to just run, be reliable, and I can start driving this summer every day. So I just ordered the parts last night. The Holly new fuel injector system and all that. So we're going to get that done in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and I'll have the baby out. I'll send you a picture. It's a pretty badass car.
That's awesome, man.
So that's my little baby, a 79 Camaro. So I've always been a Camaro guy, never a Mustang guy. It's either a Mustang Camaro. I've always been the Camaro guy. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. Superpower. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
Flying.
Why flying?
I could get to places a lot quicker. And I would be able to wear my drawers. I would be able to wear my drawers on the outside of my clothes, because people who fly.
Did you see the Superman back there?
Yeah. I mean, in this case in point, all people who fly wear drawers on the outside, and it's normal. That dude is wearing spandex with some drawers, with some bikini drawers on, and no one questions. But if I wore my drawers on the outside of my jeans right now, people would be like, what's wrong with him? But if I'm flying, everyone would be like, he's a superhero.
Oh gosh. This has been a fun conversation. If our audience wants to get a hold of you, where can they get a hold of you?
I mean, depending on the person, people who like to read books, check out the book. People who like Instagram, check me out on Instagram, at The Real Kelly Cardenas. People who like websites, kellycardenas.com. And for people who like live events, I do live events too. I'm trying to be anything for anybody at the particular time they need it. So, whatever you need, I'll be that. Oh
God, this has been awesome. I'm going to put on all our show notes, how to get a hold of Kelly, all the links to his book, his podcast, his everything. There's tons of layers here, tons of, as you can hear from this conversation, a great individual, great dad, great person, just a fun person, and truly enjoy his life. And one last thing I want to talk to you about before we go, your journal you write every morning, you do your journal. When did it all start? I think it's so powerful you do that. When did you all start doing that?
It really started in 4th grade. My dad took a millionaire course, and it was a millionaire course that you paid $4,500 to learn how to sell that course to other people to become a millionaire. But what we did get out of it is, this was not the most fun. And I call it 2 stages of my dad. There's dad and then there's pops. Everyone loves pops. No one experienced dad except me and my brothers. Dad had us write 10 pages of notes every day before we could go out and play. And this started when I was in 4th grade. So 10 pages of notes on millionaire courses every single day from the time I was in 4th grade to the time I was in 6th grade. So that's when my journaling started. I've still got journals from 1986, and talking about those. And then I really nailed it, got crazy back into it in September. A guy named Charles Ressler gave me a book, and he was like, you need to start writing at least 3 pages a day unconsciously. I did that. And then I transferred it on to, I write 3 pages a day. And then I also write a letter to my daughter every morning. And then I give them to her on Friday, and then she reads it and then gives me the journal back. And then I continue to write.
I love that. Love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. And as you're writing this, will these continue into books? Is that your goal?
I would love to. I mean, if there's a person out there that knows how to do it.
I think that would be such a cool book, having just letters to your daughter in a book. I think that would be, I know this personal there, you probably take some of them out, but I mean, I think that is such a cool little thing. Like we talked about this. I do that for my kids, but I do it on their birthdays.
Oh, right.
So I write I don't know if we talked about it, but I write a letter and I write a letter and I pretty much think of the whole year, and I talk about all the special moments, what I've learned from them, what I've taken from them. I write everything in, but I don't give it to them, and I have it put away.
Awesome.
And I do that every single year. So one day when I'm not around, they can have all these letters that go through every single year of their life, what I thought of them and what I've remembered of them, just as a memory thing. I think it's a cool little thing. So I do that, and I just put it away every year, and then we put it in our safe.
Well, so, I'm looking for the person to help me to do it. I want to publish it in my own handwriting, because my handwriting is really bad. I'd write like I was in 4th grade, and I write with my feet. That's what it looks like. So I think it would be that nod to people, because people were like, oh, you need to work on your handwriting. And my dad told me one time, he's like, son, your handwriting is your art. And I was like, oh, because he said, no one else produces what you produce. And I fell in love with it. And people were like, wow, did you start writing better? I was like, nah, I fell in love with the fact that it was bad, and it's really bad. And I would love to publish the whole book in my own handwriting with no filter at all. And literally, I'm a guy who, if you ask me it, I'll give it to you. So I'm not trying to hold anything back. I'd love to do the whole thing.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I hope you do it. That would be awesome. That would be really different, cool. And I think if people would take a lot from it. I love that. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate this. This has been a fun little journey. And man, our relationship is going to continue from here on. And I know it's just going to get stronger. So I appreciate you, Kelly.
I love you, man.
Thank you, brother.
That's a wrap for today. I want to thank our guest, Kelly, for being such an incredible guest today. If you guys enjoyed this podcast like always as much as I did, please spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, leave a review. Like always, 5 stars would be absolutely amazing. We love spending time reading the reviews. Until next week, guys, keep moving forward.